Good afternoon to all of us. It's all of you. It's wonderful to see you. It's strange to stand here as a Finn to talk about happiness because, we Finns are a little bit shy. You know what the difference is between an introvert and an extrovert Finn, right? Well, the introvert, when he talks to you, he looks at his own feet. And the extrovert, when he talks to you, looks at your feet. So out of all the Scandinavian countries, we're perhaps not the, blossoming of smiles, if you will. Now, if you look at all the indicators in the latest reports, indeed 5 out of the 10 happiest countries come all from Scandinavia. I think Norway is Hygge, Denmark is Hygge, the happiest. Then comes Norway, then comes Iceland, and then comes Finland. And then finally Sweden. Now the rest of us Scandinavians are happy that Sweden is last, right? But don't worry about it. Swedes should be very happy right now because I just looked at the first results from the Winter Olympics in Korea, and the first skiing event was won by a Swedish female. So congratulations, Sweden. Norway was second and Finland third. It's wonderful to be here today, and what I will do is speak about happiness through 3 points. The first one is about individual happiness, and that's very personal, I think, for all of us. The second one is about Scandinavian happiness, and what we think the secret recipe is. And then finally, the third one is about the future of happiness, where I think there are a few ethical questions that we need to seriously start looking at in the machine age. I will give you 2 pieces of advice on how to achieve a happy life at the end, and they actually have to do with numbers. Now, before I begin my 3 points, I should say that the topic today, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, is just an indication of the fact that the issue has been out for a long time. We all know that Aristotle already was looking for the virtuous, the happy life. We know that John Locke, in the Second Civil Treatise of Government, which was then adapted to the US Constitution, talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. And the US Constitution government changed it to happiness. I had to bring the element of temperature in here because, I come from a quite cold country and we can be happy out there in the cold as well. Now, first point then is individual happiness. We've talked a lot about it and the different indicators here today, and we've talked about empathy and many other things. I think there are 3 things that you need to do in life in order to be happy. The first one has to do with your mind, the second one has to do with your body, and the third one has to do with the relationships around you. On the mind, I think the key is to have a curious and open mind. You need to learn something new every day. You need to be open to new impulses from all walks of life. That's why I think this event is wonderful, because I'm here getting a whole bunch of new ideas about what happiness means in different types of cultures. And of course, how do you train the mind? You read, you listen, you talk, you write, you observe. It's the impulses that we get to our brain of the aha experience of learning and seeing something new. The second thing is also very personal. It's the body. And what do you do with the body? I teach or talk a lot in schools, and in today's world where we're obsessed with the way in which we look, I try to tell all the kids that, listen, it doesn't matter what you look like, it matters what you feel like. And that pertains to your body. And I think there are 3 very simple things you can do in order to keep your body intact and feeling good, regardless of what you look like. Number 1 is sleep. Can I test you? How many of you slept 8 hours tonight? See, that's bad. How many of you slept 7? Oh, 6? Guys, 5? 4? Hey, go back to the hotel. You can't be happy. There's no way. Okay, we've all flown in last night and the rest of it. But what I'm trying to say, do not underestimate the value of rest and of sleep. It's a key impediment to happiness. Number 2 is food and nutrition. Here, you don't need to go over the board. It's simple stuff. If you're tired, you usually eat bad. When you eat bad, you keep on munching. When you munch, you need to get your blood sugar levels up, and you keep on eating crap. That's how it goes. That's why when you were eating out there, if you had slept bad, you were probably roaming there already with the desserts and dates and all kinds of things. Whereas if you ate well, you got your energy from salads and fruits and vegetables, correct? I see a lot of nodding going around. What I'm saying is that don't underestimate the value of food in terms of your well-being. It's very important. And we don't feel it that much. It pays not to have too much white wheat. It pays not to have too much sugar. It pays not to drink too much alcohol. And it certainly pays to eat vegetables and fruit. And the final and third thing, I think, in terms of personal happiness, has to do with friendship. And we've talked a lot about it. There was a previous session before lunch was about empathy, about opening your heart, about loving, about caring, and about minding. And I'll get back to that in a second. But I don't think we're anything just alone. We're something because of our families, we're something because of the friends that we have, and we're something because of the working relationships that we have. And that will become increasingly important in the world of gadgets, which I will come back to in a second. So individually, what can you do? You can train your mind, you can train your body, and then finally, you can have good relations. Now, secondly, what's a success to Scandinavian happiness? I mean, if you count all of us, 5 countries, Nordic countries, we're 27 million people. And we don't exactly come from the best climatic conditions in the world. There are periods of the year when it's very dark and it's very cold. And that does physiologically hit you. There's no question about that. So if you come to Finland, please come in the summer, because then there's full light, very warm, and quite nice. And you'll see a lot of happy people. When you come in the winter, people don't look happy, but don't get it wrong. The stats are not wrong on this. I think there are a few things. And here I'll bring, Professor was speaking earlier, governments cannot create happiness. And the Scandinavian recipe for happiness is not one that can be adapted to everyone. But what governments can do and states can do is they can nudge, I really like that word, nudge happiness forward. And for me, that means that you create a welfare state. Because if you look at all the happy states around the world, they're usually welfare states. And this is not a political statement, because the Nordic countries are basically social welfare states, but open capitalistic economies. But the basic idea has to do with equality, freedom, and education. Equality, freedom, and education. And what can the government do there? On the equality side, it can empower both women and men. We live in extremely equal society. How many of you have taken parental leave? Daddy leave? How many of you have been on daddy leave? I have as well. It's completely normal. And actually, if I, as a former politician, had not done that, I would have been criticized for not doing it. What's going on? But equality and creating the possibility, childcare, and other incentives that make sure that women can be present in the labor force. Freedom is a second one. There needs to be a freedom of opportunity. Freedom of becoming whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, regardless of your background. I think that's a key element to it. And the third key element, I would argue, is education. And there, of course, Finland as a country has topped many of the PISA studies over the years, because it all starts from education. So I think if you get these 3 key ingredients right, equality, freedom, and education, you go far. Then, of course, you have a functioning education system, you have a functioning healthcare system, and you have a functioning safety network for those who have a tendency to fall outside of the societal aspects. Now, when I'm saying this, am I trying to say that all the Scandinavian countries are perfect? No. It's a pursuit. It's an aim. It's an attempt. It's a process that you keep on working at. And you have to keep at it all the time. I just believe that there are a few basic elements that you have to deal with. The third and final point I have before my conclusion and suggestions is about the future of happiness. And that's why I found the session on artificial intelligence, the session on gaming, the session on social media, and the session on mindfulness very interesting. You see, my thesis is that As we are in the midst of a technological revolution, of artificial intelligence, of machine learning, of robotics, of possibly virtual reality and augmented reality in the future, we have a danger of detaching ourselves from humanity, from empathy, from love, from caring. I also think we're going to have huge ethical questions emerging from the future of artificial intelligence. Data collection is one of them. You remember that constitutions were created to protect the individual from the state or the minority from the majority? We haven't even started yet regulating or thinking about the ethical code for big data and artificial intelligence. Because nowadays, entities such as Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Google, Microsoft, the list goes on. They are the ones who have the data. It was fascinating to see the statistics about the prediction of well-being or health through Twitter. Basically, that could predict areas of disease better than normal medicine or age or sex or background as such. I would argue that there are, because of artificial intelligence, nowadays already machines that know more about you than you know about yourself. And we need international agreement on what this means from all the different types of cultures. I'll just take one simple example. In the future, we will have neural laces in our brain which can control various parts of our body. Say hypothetically your hand has been amputated. There was an example of the nice functioning left hand here earlier. Now, isn't it great that medicine has been able to create a hand which is like a real hand, feels like flesh and bone and muscle and blood and nervous system, and that your brain can give that hand a command? That's a great advancement in science. But what if that neural lace is hit by a bug, a cyber attack? Now, it's a little bit funny when I say that, okay, the cyber attack, I start hitting myself. You know, I'm like in old Chaplin movies or something like that. But it's less funny when that bug tells you to take a gun and shoot someone else. So what I'm trying to say is that we are becoming interconnected, men, women, and machines. We're going from Homo sapiens towards some kind of a mix between a human and a machine. I think the previous, right before lunch, the example of how we use our mobile phones today. You try that. Go for a digital sabbatical. Try to get out of it. Try to follow the program of this seminar without your mobile phone. Try to get back to the hotel without your mobile phone. Try to book your airplane without a mobile phone. We are already completely connected, and it's going to get closer. These things are going to be on our skin. And then the question becomes, the future of happiness, where do we get fulfillment from? And here my argument is that what is left when we start approaching the notion of a mix between a man, woman, and machine is empathy. It's how we connect with each other, how we care for each other, how we discuss with each other. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I'll finish off and then take a couple of questions with two pieces of advice for how to construct, or at least try to construct, a happy life. The first one has to do about the way in which you structure your day. I believe in what I call 8 + 8 + 8, which means that you sleep for 8 hours, that you work hard for 8 hours, and you play for 8 hours. And by play, I mean family, friends, exercise, whatever, read. 8 + 8 + 8. The second suggestion I give to you, and I started this myself only last September, is what I call 1 + 1 + 1. That means that you do 1 hour of exercise per day. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be walking, running, cycling, tennis, whatever you're into. Number 2, you read a book for 1 hour a day. Why did I take this choice? because I found myself flicking. I was flicking from one place to another, clicking, reading this and that all over the place. I was not doing deep thinking. I did not spend 25 to 30 minutes with a text thinking about it, and I didn't find myself happy. Now I've been reading a book for an hour a day for the past 4 or 5 months, and believe me, it increases happiness. Okay, it's easier for me because I travel a lot, so I can read a lot on planes, but believe me, it's a fantastic sensation. And the third thing is the most difficult. Only do 1 hour of social media per day. You try that. And believe me, that is probably the most difficult one. I mean, what stopped me during the presentation before lunch was that when he started to speak, I was on my phone. And that's how we are. So go for 8 plus 8 plus 8 and 1 plus 1 plus 1. So ladies and gentlemen, these were the points I wanted to make about personal happiness, mind, body, and friends, about Scandinavian happiness, equality, freedom, and education, about the future of happiness. Remember to be human beings, not machines. And about advice, 8 plus 8 plus 8, 1 plus 1 plus 1. But can I tell you one thing to finish off with? We were trying to think about how to brand the Scandinavian countries. You know, what would be the telling story or the slogan like Incredible India? You know what we came up with? Scandinavia, even cooler than you think. Thank you very much.